before. I think he told the club or told Conte he had a bit of a temperature. They sent him home. Then he went for tests, and yeah. So I think it was like some kind of acute leukemia or something.
Yeah,
So really weird.
yeah,
And yeah, and then he passed away a few days later. So massive
yeah.
shock to everybody. Yeah, yeah, very sad. And just going forward a bit, last night the tributes in the stadium just before the game last night. That was a bit of a choking up moment, I
Oh,
felt.
yeah. I mean, that was very poignant, and yeah, like it's a class. It's a class act. Class gesture. Um, uh, and I don't know. I can't. Very emotional to see that in the stadium at the time. So
Yeah, in fact, when it was on the big screens last night just before the game, and it was flashing up photos of Gian Piero with all the players or various people and Conte and what have you. And I thought
mm,
if they put Sonny and Gian Piero as the last shot,
mm,
I think I might cry.
mm.
and and it was the kind of the last shot. It was them
Yeah,
sitting down on the bench, just having a laugh and a
yeah.
joke, and yeah, I just really choked up at that point. I thought, the emotion of the game, the emotion of that, it's just a big thing, and you realise that although we moan about, midfield threes and midfield twos, it doesn't really matter in the whole scheme of
Oh,
things when
mate,
things
that
are.
still matters. Oh, it still
It
matters.
does. Yeah,
Uh,
well, let's get on to Royale, but yeah.
yeah. Okay. So let's move on. So the next game, as we've discussed, was Brighton away, and clearly for the club, it was really important.
Yeah.
It was important, and it was at kind of the end of a really traumatic week for them.
Mm.
So finally, as a club, we kind of we've seen the change that we wanted in formation. So we switched to 3-5-2. Basuma came in against his old club, which was I'm sure was good for him. Uh,
Yeah.
Richie dropped to the bench. Doherty was in. Doherty, however you want to pronounce his name. He was
Yeah.
in because Royal was suspended,
Yeah.
and Sessegnon was back. Yeah, Sessegnon was back, and
Oh.
I actually put some notes about just some general notes on those summing up notes on the two the two previous games. Okay, but Perisic started both games. Obviously,
Yeah.
there's no Kulusevski as well because the injury after the international
Yeah.
break.
Yeah.
And yeah, and Perisic started both games, and I know, like me, um, you're yet to be convinced by Perisic in
Mm.
terms of what he brings to the side, and because for
Yes.
me it's just dead ball delivery. He
Yes.
brings dead ball delivery, good crosses, like in open play if we can get him into that position at the moment, but that's not always the case. So yeah, effectively you're looking at dead ball delivery. So he dropped out for the Brighton game. Cess was back in. Davies also back in. So like I know Brighton are your favourite second team, or they were no longer your favourite second team
Yeah.
since they binned off Potter. But
Yeah.
they're a good side. They're a good
They
side,
are.
and it was
They are.
a good win, but not necessarily a good performance. I think. Would you? What were your thoughts on the performance?
What, our performance? You mean?
Yeah,
Yeah, the Spurs
yeah.
performance itself. Yeah. I thought I thought overall we played quite well.
Okay.
There was nothing really in comparison to late last season when we were blowing teams away, but I don't think you're necessarily going to do that with Brighton. And in
Mm.
fact, it was fairly similar to the game. I went to the Amex last season and watched
So what
the.
you that's when you were in the Brighton end with your Brighton top on, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah, that's right. Shouting, Graham, come and get me. Yeah, but that was a tough game as well because Brighton, as you say, they are a really good footballing side, and they, Potter's done a really good job.
Yeah,
De Zerbi's obviously um, taking that kind of pattern on, it seems, and yeah, they've got a really strong midfield. They've got decent attack with Welbeck and Trossard.
I think Welbeck's probably your issue. Well, not your issue, but their issue. I think
Yeah.
he just doesn't score enough goals.
No, he
So
doesn't. No, he doesn't.
for what he brings to the side, he doesn't really score enough goals. And I think if they had someone else that could score, as opposed to Welbeck, take for instance, if they had Ivan Toney,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
up there, so a similar type of player,
Yeah.
right, but number one, he doesn't get injured all the time. I mean, Welbeck's doing really well. He's not been injured for a while actually, but normally he's just like game
Yeah.
and then injury. But so things have
Exactly.
improved from that side, but he just doesn't score enough. But if you've got
No.
Ivan Toney in there, Ivan Toney's putting away a lot of those chances that he would get, and they'd probably be a lot higher up the up the
Y-
table.
You're
Actually, they're
absolutely
doing
right.
really well, aren't they? Weren't they third or fourth or something? So they're not doing too
But
bad actually.
I think they were fourth and we were third actually, and
Yeah,
all that, Sky or BT or whoever it was, they weren't actually badging it as a top four game for obvious reasons, but maybe they should have been.
yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, I think you're right about Welbeck because he does get himself into some decent positions, but when he takes a shot, you just think, Christ, that's just bloody awful. But to be fair, they did have a few chances, but I thought overall we just did what we had to do for that game and
Yeah,
come
yeah.
away.
I mean,
And
I was out and I turned, I turned, I was able to watch it on my phone. I sneakily
mm.
tried to get it on my phone, like whilst I was out. I turned it on just in time to see a score. So
Oh, okay.
we, we scored. I watched the rest of the game, and the rest of the game I thought was turgid. I just thought
It was a bit turgid, yeah.
it just
But
typical sitting in a block like you say that we do, and
yeah,
just and try and
yeah.
just ride it out.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did invite a lot of pressure on, but they couldn't really do very much. And Conte likes us doing it. He likes us suffering, and he
Do you
wants
think
us
he's
to
got
be a.
like I think he's got like a masochistic side then that where he just loves he just loves to see us suffer.
I think I don't know. Is this an Italian thing, or is it is it similar to what Mourinho's trying to do all the time, or uh, it seems to be a bit more kind of pragmatic than what Mourinho does because Mourinho just goes totally passive and there's no way of
Yeah,
getting the ball forward. But um, yeah, I just think that Conte does like his teams to have the ability to sit in and just see a game out, and
yeah,
it is very Italian. Um, yeah, it's not a great watch, but then if you're banging in three up the other end, you don't mind so much if you're going to win 3-0, you know,
yeah, yeah. But you, yeah,
score three lovely goals and then just see the game out.
and I think the key to that is because as you say, we had chances and we will get chances. Even in that system, you're going to get chances. You're going to get opportunities to break
Yeah,
because at some point,
yeah,
you'll sit in, turn the ball over. There's an opportunity to to combine and break. And he's really, really critical of our decision making in the final third,
yeah,
and and not taking the chances when they're there, and being that we need to be better and more clinical in those situations, and we're not. And I think some
I
of our
agree.
players just still play for it themselves rather than playing for that moment. Right, the moment is get the ball in the net, and then then we go again because you get the ball in the net, like that opens the team up more because they have to come at you a bit more, which means that
Yeah,
actually ultimately you'll probably get your chance to score if you allow someone else to score first. Like just put it in. Doesn't matter who scores,
yeah.
so you'll get a chance at some point. So
And I think that's essentially what Conte is saying. But you can see because he's got all his fixed passing patterns and how he wants people to play. He's basically saying to Kane, get the ball on the turn. I just want you to release it to whoever you can as quickly as possible. And other teams know that Kane's doing that. They just know exactly what we're doing. So it's a case of us being able to execute those moves better than those other teams can stop us doing them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that's essentially what it comes down to. And we have struggled all season in getting those passes together up front. And and Harry especially. I know Sonny has been bloody awful with his control, but
Mm.
Harry especially, if he could have released Sonny a lot more this year, then I think Sonny would have got a lot more goals.
So does that? I mean, does that segue nicely into yesterday's game
I
then?
think it does. Yeah,
I think it
yeah,
does because I think that the difference, I think, like you know, between like yesterday's game, for example, and some of the other games this season, and some of the the 1-0s that I know it was only 3-2. I say only, I know it was 3-2 last night, but it could have been more. But
yeah,
uh, you know, if we, I don't want to discount. We're not going to discount. We're not going to discount Frankfurt's opener, but we'll come back to it. But if you
yeah,
think about Son's first goal in terms of how that was, the movement and the passing to open that up, and how Kane played him in,
yeah,
like how and where he played him in.
yeah,
Um, you know, that's more akin to what the expectation is in terms
yeah,
of playing the right pass at the right time. And there were lots of opportunities, or lots of times yesterday I felt where we seemed to be a lot more unselfish
yeah,
around the box and tried to play that pass.
yeah.
Not all the time it came off, but a lot of the time we were quite close to achieving that. So I thought it was an overall better performance and more attacking performance yesterday.
Yeah, it was quite interesting actually because the first 15 minutes or so, so if we go back to their goal,
Mm,
first 15 minutes or so, I thought we were under a lot of pressure. They were pressing us. So in
yeah,
Frankfurt, they weren't pressing us.
yeah,
Whereas last night, they decided to actually go for it. And of course, their goal came about because Dyer couldn't control the ball that he received from Romero. And Dyer got a load of stick for that. But did you see the pass that Romero gave him? I
I
thought
thought,
I thought I
go
thought
on.
it was a tough pass actually to actually control because Romero made the pass knowing that that other guy, that Frankfurt guy,
Pressing
was
him.
gonna press him.
Yeah,
So I don't know
but they
what he thought Dyer was going to do. Although Dyer was really sluggish, I won't. I'm not going to take that away from the criticism that he's got.
I mean, I have to say, I thought Dyer had a poor game
Yeah,
yesterday, and
yeah,
I take your point on the pass, but I do feel that, as you say, this is part of Conte's game, that he wants the players to kind of risk the ball, because if I can, there's a few passes that there's a pass, I can't remember if it was Longley who played it, or I think it might have been Longley who played it, and he tried to play this pass between their two midfielders
yeah,
to either Højbjerg or to Kane further up the pitch, and it just the guy slides, and he it just misses him and gets to the target. So it's can you risk the ball
yeah,
for the reward? And
yeah,
a lot
yeah,
of the time, certainly at the back, it's like, can we risk it to draw them in,
yeah,
and then if the pass beats the press, then you create the space and you open it out.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's a interesting tactic.
It is.
Uh,
It is. I've been seeing it a lot this season, actually, probably more than last season.
yeah.
And teams know that we're doing it. They know damn well we're doing it, but can they stop us? That's the
Yes.
thing. And
Yeah.
and a lot of the times they are stopping us, but that's purely because we're not executing the passes properly.
Yeah.
And if you look at teams like City, one of the reasons that they're good, and this might sound bloody obvious, but they pass the ball really well.
But
They're
they, yeah,
very, very accurate.
and they're quick with it as well. So they
Yeah,
don't,
yeah,
you know, there was a point, I think, and I don't know if this is like just kind of sums up Dyer's performance, or just the way it is, but there was a point where Dyer had the ball, and he sort of twiddled it between both feet. He's dragged it back one way, dragged it back the other way,
yeah,
looking for a
yeah,
passing option. But there are passing options on.
yeah,
And if what City will do is, if there's if the passing option is obvious, but and that's the only passing option, they'll still play it.